want to get started? This is 6:00. I have 6:02. Hopefully everyone will come on. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and please rise for the flag salute.
Who's got a flag?
I don't have one. I thought somebody else would.
I got a flag in the background, you just can't see it.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
The United States of America,
of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Some of you guys are too small. Speed it up.
That's what we should do, follow Bill from now on. That was good.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Caucus.
Here.
Mrs. Pasio. Here. Mr. Ranieri.
Here.
Mr. Lobenstein.
Here.
Mr. Farrell.
Here.
Mr. Shapiro.
Here.
Mrs. Kelly. One silent. Mr. Law.
Here.
Mr. Basor, is he here?
Here. Yes.
Yes.
And Ms. Strelly. Here.
Okay. Public notice that this meeting has been given pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act and given to the clerk in the following manner. Posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Clerk's office on January 5th, 2022, and 2 emailed to the retrospect and Carrier Post on January 5th, 2022. Obviously, this is a caucus meeting, so we have a little different format here. I'm just going to go over the new business very quickly. Used car lot licenses are all due. Do you have most of them in, Joyce?
I have two in.
Okay.
I have
Municipal-
Belmar Collision and Toyota. I'm still waiting for two more.
a municipal alliance resolution, resolution canceling taxes for 100% disabled vet, resolution appointing the library board member. The only thing I want to say about that, I might pull that for a second, just because I haven't had an opportunity to meet the board member. So I might pull back on that one. Resolution appointing building subcode official. That is our backup subcode official. Cap ordinance, that's something we do every year. Helps us with our budget. And then just quickly, for those I haven't spoken about, the opt-out of health insurance benefit ordinance. So we've had an unusual situation where we have employees who currently get our health insurance and now have options of opting out. What we're going to do is we're going to follow the state model. We don't have a policy that's specific enough. So this has never happened before, and if anybody remembers, there was a letter sent out about Berlin Township. They had some issues. So to keep ourselves from having issues, we just need to formulate policies that specify different things. And in this particular case, the way the state health benefits plan works, now we're not a member of that, but we're going to follow the state's guidance on this. They basically say if you are currently getting health insurance from the state health benefits plan and you have an opportunity to opt out, you can't opt out back into the state health benefits plan. So our is that correct, Reggie?
Yeah, if you decide to opt out, you can't get back in.
Yeah. So we're gonna. Well, you can't get the opt out premium. We pay our employees a portion of the savings, 25% of the savings, if they opt out. But typically they opt out because they're getting insurance from some other mechanism. The only thing we're going to do to follow the state's guidance is we're going to be specific that you're only eligible to opt out and get a percentage of the savings if your opt-out is not the borough health insurance policy. You can't opt out of what you're already getting. Does that make sense to everyone? I don't want to use specifically, but we just got to be clear that we can't have you can't have people who are eligible for something and then getting paid for being eligible for something. Now, if they get the health insurance from it, and now the other thing we have to do policy-wise is the payroll department has to also send out a letter making sure that anybody who's eligible for this opt-out shows that they get health insurance from some other means. They show where that other means is. We do the math every year so that it shows the savings to the borough and to the employee, and then that's the amount of money that's split between the municipality and the employee. Those were all things that were found in that comptroller's finding in Berlin Township. So if anybody doesn't realize, there was a letter sent out to every single municipality warning us all to make sure that we have policies and procedures, that we follow those policies and procedures, so we don't jam ourselves up or anything like that. Is there any other questions on that? We'll hopefully have it'll just be a resolution amending our policies and procedures for the borough. Any other questions on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll keep on going. Before we get to Russ, well, you know what? We're going to go to Russ first, because everyone else can speak after Russ, because there are issues that Russ is going to bring up tonight that we want to make sure that financially we're all sound with what we're trying to accomplish. And on the engineering department, we're obviously sound with what we're going to do with that. So once Russ's presentation, we can have those two professionals chime in. Russ, this way, if there's any questions that are brought up, hopefully we can get back, get them answered, and then come back and move forward on this. So at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Russ. Russ, introduce yourself.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
I had to do, my mic doesn't work, so. Okay, I'm Russ Bird. Some of you might know me from the Rotary, but I'm really here representing Reimagined Runnemede, and that's who we're doing this project with, so. Will I be able to share the screen to do the presentation?
Joyce?
I can see you.
Yes, Joyce.
Yeah, I have a presentation that I put together that explains the points of what we're looking to do for the grant money, and no.
Where are you? I don't see you on here any longer.
Hi, Sam, Joyce. You just must not have enough. It's 5:10.
Yeah, he is.
I'm on your left.
I'm going to turn it over to you to allow you to, now I'm going to make you the presenter. Just one moment.
Okay.
Okay, you'll be able to show it now what you have.
Okay. Okay, so I click share. Okay. Okay. Okay, can everyone see that now?
Yes.
Okay, it looks like it's going to cut everyone off a little bit.
That's
That's
okay.
okay. We can see it.
So this is it. You know, it's a proposal for the Runnemede Lake Park for the bridges and trail restoration. It's for the $25,000 that the borough has received, and this is what we're proposing to do. So, okay, let's see if I can do. Okay, can you see that? Did it come up?
See the picture, the cover sheet.
Okay.
We got it.
So, there you go.
Okay, I see that. Okay, so these are just orient you to the park somewhat. The one from 1965 was made by Bill Leap, and the current one was made by Kenny Leap. I do like to point out, though, look how much smaller Runnemede Lake has gotten since 1965 because of the storm drain up there, but that's a different point we'll talk about later. But if you look at the newer map, we're going by pretty close to where the original bridges were. So this would be the location of bridge number 1. Can you see the cursor?
Yep.
Okay. So that would be bridge number 1. And that one actually crosses the creek. Bridge number 2 actually crosses a spur. And it's not really considered a bridge as much as classified as what's called a boardwalk. Okay, to be technical. Number 3 is a bridge, but it's a little footbridge. Number 4, that's a real bridge. Now, it's from the location that's shown on here, it's actually about 50 yards close to Clements Bridge Road. The reason being is there were 2 fallen trees here that were hardwoods. We thought we could make into a bridge. We'd never get past a building inspector for that, so we're a real bridge there. And then that would be number 4, and then 5 and here go over 2 springs. They're also what are called boardwalks. Okay, so here's the location of bridge number 1. Wait, did it come up?
No. Yes.
Okay, there you go. Okay, that's the location of bridge number 1. It's the 16-foot span. Okay, and that would be just at the top of the lake, just beyond the wide area. Okay, this is what we're proposing to put in that location. Did that come up?
Yes.
There you go. Okay, so that's what we're proposing. That's called a Hawthorne Bridge. It's 5 feet wide, 60 inches wide by 20 feet long. They covered a 16-foot span. Okay, and it's designed and built by a company called Fifth Room, somewhere in central Pennsylvania. Okay. It is an all wooden bridge. There are a couple modifications for what we were using it to, and I'll cover that in just a moment here. Let's see if the next one comes up. Okay, why isn't that going on there? Oh, there you go. Can you see? No.
There's a cost.
There we go. Now do you see it?
Yep.
There's the cost. The basic bridge is $3,500. For what we wanted to use it for, we needed to add an additional beam to strengthen it somewhat. And then it also needed a double railing if it was going to be in a public park. So the total cost of the product is $41.88. The shipping cost estimate is $610. So the amount that would be paid to this manufacturer would be $47.98. For this bridge, to anchor it, I've had several suggestions. The original bridge actually was anchored by telephone poles, so we had looked at that. But we would have to buy an entire pole. It's 35 feet long, cut it on site to 4-foot lengths, and it would be $250 for the telephone pole, and they're kind of hard to find. The alternative I was offered was using 6x6s and anchoring them 4 feet into the ground and then lagging the bridge to it. If we do it the telephone pole way, I would need to rent an auger. We would need to rent an auger. And the bid for that for $98, and the total cost would be $51.46. Okay, so that's the first bridge. I'm going to go to bridge number 4 because that's the other significant bridge. Okay, so let's see. There you go. Okay. There's the location of Bridge 4. I was actually calling it 4A because of the location that moved. To the right picture, you can just about see where the trees had fallen. Clemensford Road would be over here on the left. You are on the north side of the creek looking south. The span right there is 20 feet, 11 inches. Okay, and you can see on the first bridge, the rise from the water was only about 1.5 to 2 feet. That distance to the water there is about 8 feet. Okay, so we do have a more significant span to go across. So here's what we're proposing. Let's see if we get that up here. There you go. It's a bridge called Ready Span by a company called Bedford, out of Bedford, Pennsylvania, outside of Pittsburgh. The bridge itself is $17,040. Their estimated shipping is $850. The bridge is going to more look like this one in the left-hand corner because that's the one that has the 60-inch clearance. Okay, we did choose 60-inch clearances on this bridge because for maintenance in the park, we're going to need to be able to use small utility vehicles like a lawn tractor or a side-by-side or an ATV type of vehicle to pull a wagon, but it's not big enough to put a pickup truck or anything like that on it. But that's why we're going with 5 feet on all bridges. Here's Here's a little more spec on this bridge. Switching it over. Okay. Let's see if this works right. This video gives us some detail. You're not getting sound on it, are you? Can you hear it?
No.
We can see it though.
Mayor,
Okay.
this is Eleanor Kelly. I'm on by phone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Eleanor, we can hear you.
I was
Okay.
not able to get on video.
No problem. Make a note that Miss Kelly is part of the meeting. Ms. Pitts?
Okay.
Okay, that was a little presentation by Ted Harris, who is actually the PE who specs these bridges. Let's go to here. If you were to order this bridge, your submittal package will contain PE stamped approval drawing package and PE stamped structural design calculation package. It'll include your reaction loads, what you'll need to design your concrete abutment. And it actually, once you purchase the kit, they will provide the specs of how the abutment should be built. Okay, so the bridge itself is $17,040. The shipping is about $800. So the total cost of Bedford will be $17,840. Now the engineering costs and the cost of the abutment is still a variable. Okay, we will need to involve the engineer to approve the design of the abutment. I did get a quote on the abutments from, you may know, Ed White. That's what he does for a living, is this type of concrete. He said the material costs are about $2,500 for each abutment, making it $5,000 in material costs. If you were to have somebody do it, he said it would cost you $10,000 total, including labor. If we can get the volunteers, including Ed, to help us do it, then our estimated material cost is about $5,000, but we still don't know until we get the specs of what the abutment needs to be. Okay, so you see what the cost that is, right? I'm going to go through the others and understand. I see what the total costs are, understanding also that the grant is for $25,000, but we'll get to that in just a minute. I do want to review these other bridges. Let me see if I can get this up here. Okay, so that's actually bridge number 2. There's currently a boardwalk there. You can see that it's crossing over where a spring runs. Now let me give you the specs on that a little bit. Okay, currently it has a 2-foot wide by 20-foot long boardwalk using 4x4 runners and 1-inch by 6-inch planks. We can add on to that an additional 3 feet, making it what we're making a requirement of 5 feet in width. So we're consistent. And the material cost to do this is about $400. And Reimagine Runnemede and local volunteers will build that. Okay. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. No, that's not 3. Okay, here's 3. Okay, there's that. Come on. Okay, there you go. Okay, so that's bridge number 3. Reimagine Runnemede did build these steps down to the creek bed, and currently that's 2 feet by 12 feet wide. We have a couple of different choices. You can see where that's located, close to the red sewage pipe that runs across the creek there. So here's a couple of things that we could do here. Okay, switch. Okay, so, since there's currently a bridge there, we can leave it alone and not do anything. Okay, the second thing is add 3 feet to the width, but because it's down such an incline, you still could not get a vehicle across there. So I don't know if it's practical to do that. The third is to build a bridge up on the bank, similar to number 4, but that would be more than, $22,000 or more. And at this point, we're not doing that. And the decision was that at this point, we're going to leave what's there and not do anything with that. Okay, so here's 5 and 6. Okay, that's the location of 5 and 6. You can see there's actually 2 springs that run under those pallets that are there, and there used to be 2 bridges here. It's actually been changed a little bit, that we took out some of the broken ones because it was kind of hazardous, and we put wooden discs in the middle, but I'm going to change all that out anyway. So here's what we're looking to do. Okay, build a single span boardwalk 44 feet long, and then that would actually run the entire length over both of those springs. The surface itself has about a 1 to 10 pitch on a hill. So one side of the walkway will actually start almost 6 inches lower than the other side. So it will have to be built up. We think the material cost of lumber and whatnot is about $1,000. We're going to need what are called footing pads so that it doesn't sink. Otherwise, we're going to have to, bury posts to anchor it. And the approximate cost to do that is $1,200. And there's the per item cost of what we would be building it of. Okay, so here's the total. Okay. You see, so we are at 32,000 if we did all that we're proposing here. So it was suggested that maybe we can convince somebody to sponsor a bridge. So when it was brought up in the meeting, I said I actually had somebody who may be interested, which is actually my wife. So here's what she's agreeing to. Okay, she'd like to purchase the cost of bridge number 1. I actually talked her into paying in a little bit more than that for a total of $6,000 because that help us hit our number better. So she's going to put up $6,000 to pay for that bridge and put her father's name on it. I don't know, her father, most of you probably don't know because you're quite a bit younger, but he had actually been a councilman in Runnemede before he became the tax collector after the passing of John Ward Sr., and he was in that position for 23 years, and he passed away, more than 25 years ago. But, there had been some talk to my mother-in-law that, maybe they'd name something for him, but all those people are long gone, and we're thinking that this might be a way that we can get that done if you guys are all agreeable. So she's willing to put that money up to do that. So we go from here. Okay. If you agree to, what I'm proposing, we would ask that you order the bridge from Fifth Room. Their total cost to them is $47.98. Ordered the bridge from Bedford Plastics for $17,840, and then maybe arrange for some way that we can get access to about borrowings at Home Depot to buy the lumber to build those other bridges. Okay, and then the fourth thing is to agree to allow us to name bridge number 1 in David Watson's name, because it will always be owned by the borough, and, you know, it's your call to say. And then once the bridge is ordered from Bedford, they'll give us the plans to spec the 2 abutments, and we can figure out how we move on those 2. So, there are a couple of other things that if the borough can provide for us, would be helpful. Let me see.
Yeah, Russ, if you could finish up, because we have to talk about this a little bit more. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know, the purchasing and things like
The last slide here, Nick. So here's just a couple things. You know, at times I know the borough was able to provide bulk stone, mulch, you know, things like that. There's still more to do on the trails there. So, and then the last 3 slides are actually quotes from 3 vendors. The 2 that I told you about, as well as a third one called Creative Composites for both bridges. So that way you're in compliance with the Contracting Act.
All right, Russ. Let me just bring the engineer in first. I have a few questions. We'll talk to our CFO briefly about this. I'm going to say, first of all, I think that the project, I think it's a great project. I know that the borough's made the commitment to work with our volunteers to get these things done. However, Russ, you work for government. We have a process. And one of the first things I'm going to say about this process is, separate from money, is you know, how we proceed. And we always proceed with caution with our engineering and our construction consultants prior to doing anything. So before we would purchase anything, Russ, we would want our engineering and our construction details worked out way in advance. And then, of course, liability issues. And then, of course, the last piece of the puzzle is the financial aspect of it. Because what I'm looking at is something that's going to be much larger than the 25,000 we have. So just to talk to the group, I will say that if council's not able to come up with the remainder of the money this year, I think, like any other project, we can bite off, you know, what everyone thinks we can get done, so that we do as much as possible this year, and then with the idea that we have a plan moving forward and we know what we're going to do. But Mark, I know I sent you this slides prior. Could you just and Russ, if you want to hand it back over to Joyce, or Joyce, you want to take it back, and then.
So let's say something about the money, Nick. So, you know, I know that what the amount is. It's at 32, right? We've got the 25 grant. We've got 6,000 that, in addition.
Let me interrupt you, Russ, though. That doesn't include the last bridge. And installation costs could be much greater than what I'm seeing here. And I think we have to take into consideration that this is a public park. And so I'd like to make sure that like I said, the way the boardwalk is set up, do we have any obligations for railings or any kind of safety fixing? You know, one of the things I heard you say was some of the stuff was hazardous. Not a word we like to say when we're doing things in the public. So, you know, those are issues that I think that our borough engineer and our insurance have to give us the first green light, and then, of course, the construction aspect. But, Russ, I think we're on the right track. I'm not saying at all that we should not move forward with this. I just think that we've got to, you know, see what parts we can do right away, and then other parts that might be more detailed. Mark, did you want to, because I appreciate you sending it over early. Mark, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. One is on that bridge 4A. Is there a crane that has to come in to put that into place once your footings are installed?
No, the pieces are small enough that they can be carried in. They've built in wilderness areas before, and they're all small enough that they can be carried in.
A 26-foot piece of steel is light enough to carry?
First of all, it's not steel, it's reinforced plastics.
Okay, all right, that was my first one. But the other thing we have to consider is there's permitting with DEP, because we're in wetlands out there. So there are some general permits you can go after. The easiest one is for a trail or a boardwalk. that's a non-motorized trail, but now you're talking about you want to be able to have small ATVs in for maintenance, so that just adds another wrinkle to what permits we have to get for working in wetlands. So that's something that we have to consider. And then we can't just go buy from one vendor. We would have to at least 3-quote all these different bridges that we're going after. And I can defer to Shelley on that for what would have to happen with municipal finance law. And then the mayor also mentioned the safety aspect. I know 2 of the bridges have rails, but it depends where those other ones are, how much of a drop off of it is if you need rails on the other ones as well. So those are just some of the issues we have to work at.
Okay, well, I some of those answers. The drop off on any of the boardwalk is no more than 12 inches. That's what we consider a boardwalk as opposed to a bridge. But what was the other thing you asked?
The
last 3 slots of the presentation are the 3 quotes from 3 separate vendors for both of those bridges.
Well, here's the only thing that I'll say is I think, though, that we've got a partial plan here. I think that we need to have a very specific plan. So before we order anything, I think we got to clean up our drawings so that we show exactly what our foundations are, what our details are. I personally, my opinion of this project is I think that if we attack the boardwalks and maybe the smaller bridge first, Ms. Straley had pointed out, and Russ, I know you had asked for the application from the county. And one thing I did notice that Shelley pointed out also was the way that the county application was written was the funds were divided up amongst the bridge restoration, the pathway restoration, signage, recycling cans, and benches. So we actually put $7,500 in the application for benches. So these are some details on the finance side that we have to work out. We might need to help work with Reimagine Runnemede with the benches that were just recently installed, do something. I don't know how we would do that. But I think we've got to have a total plan defined. I think we need a total plan. And I hate to say, the only way I think we can really do this is to bring in our borough engineer. And that might cause a little delays and it'll cause a little expense. But I think to make everyone happy, the way to get him at least to, if we all agree that we attack maybe these low-hanging fruits, once we have an overall, I think the overall drawing you guys given us where the plans of the bridges are going to go, anybody can jump in on this one. I think the motorized guys might take it to a level where it's much more difficult for us. I think DEP permitting, when we're just replacing, if you remember, our original goal here was to mimic what was already out there. Mm-hmm. And that was the easiest way to do it. The DEP looks very favorably upon, rehabilitating what's already out there. And if you remember, when we walked this originally, we took pictures of the old posts that were sticking out of the ground, things like that. Now, I agree, Russ is right that some of these locations do have to move because of the way the waters move. But I think that as long as everybody on council is still in the same direction, we just have to maybe get an overall plan and then break it down so that we get this done, at least get some of that first bridge done and maybe these boardwalks done. And I think it'll show some progress. John, what's your opinion about attacking it that way? I know you're part of this.
Nick, after you had mentioned the $25,000 is divided the way we've, the application, it's not all for the bridges. So there are other things, benches, and you mentioned right off the bat, $7,500. So that would only leave enough to do, and maybe we start with a smaller bridge. I personally think that's a good idea after the explanation of the funds were explained to me. I think we're making progress right now. I like what I'm seeing. Great presentation, Russ. But the mayor's right. We got to go slow because this is this is working with government, and we've got to dot our I's and cross our T's. So I think that we have enough information that Mark, our engineer, Dan can see what we've got already. Believe that if they haven't already gotten the information, it gets sent to both of them. and maybe the next meeting we can review it again with some final ideas, and get started. The funds for this, Nick, is there a deadline to use them, or they're already going to be committed? The 25,000 is committed, so there's no.
I'm going to let Shelley answer that, and just let you know. Typically, no, in my experience, but the county is not always favorable about giving us more money until we spend the money we have. So, Shelley, you want to at least go over? Russ, I know you're familiar with government finance law. Dave, I see you're on the phone call, and I know everyone, the members of council, know that our process. But I want Shelley just to reiterate it, because we are working with a volunteer group, and there is, there's nothing to say volunteerism can't help. I mean, I love the idea of donations and dedications. I think that's all great, and that'll help us. So, Shelley, do you want to add to this?
And just to reiterate, the way the application was submitted and approved for the bridges and the pathway, I mean, it looks like about 15.5 specifically for bridges and pathway was submitted and approved in the first round. We do have the ability to submit an additional open space application, but I don't know that we would receive any answer on that or approval this year. But that is certainly, an option where we could do a phase 2 to this, if that's something that, people want to discuss and consider moving forward as well. But as far as this particular discussion goes, yes, we do have procedures that we have to follow for a project like this. Anything on our public grounds for construction, we do have to follow our local finance laws, our local public contract laws, and it does also include prevailing wage. So any quotes that we're looking at right now, what we would need to determine is, does it include that? I know that we're talking about volunteers, but at the same time, we have to get our JIF involved, as it was brought up already. So there are a lot of factors. So we do need to get our engineer involved in this from the start. And as Mark Beecher had already brought up, we are looking at wetlands, and he needs to be involved. So there's a lot of factors in this particular project that needs to be discussed before moving forward. And our insurance company, of course, has to be involved. So local public contract law has a lot of factors to it, as well as municipal finance. So there's just dealing with government financing and government purchasing is just not quite as easy as getting a quote and moving forward with a project. And you also, don't have the ability to split things up and, purchase a little bit here, a little bit there, and move forward like that. It's just not always that easy. Government's just a little bit different when it comes to that.
Yes.
So,
Sorry, Shelley, let me just jump in on that. I think what we're also trying to say is we want to have this balance between volunteerism, balance between people wanting to make contributions, of course protecting the borough in every way possible. So Dave did a great job with getting construction permits for the benches that went up. Volunteerism, going out there doing it. That's all good. We still need to notify our insurance company. They do come out once a year. Don't want to make sure that anything done, we've done it in a way that makes them happy. But I think we can move forward at least on part of this project. I think we need one is the overall path, which is, I think you've got that done. 2, I think we should attack the boardwalks and the first bench for the first bridge first. And I think if Mark can get involved in that, we can get our application into the state. I'm going to have to say, and once again, up to you guys, I think we ought to pull back on the motorized vehicles. Russ, just quickly, what did you think the reason was for the motorized vehicles? We can access both sides of the stream from roads. Why do you think we need to cross the bridges with motorized vehicles?
It's a bad move.
From the red trail, you have a difficult time getting up and down that side, coming in from Orchard Avenue. You would have to really make a better incline there that you can, bring municipal vehicles into the park. Otherwise, you can't really get onto that side. So if you do that, then that would be fine. Even if we did it 5 feet wide and we don't want vehicles there, we could put barriers so that, wheelchairs can make, motorized vehicles cannot.
Well, I like the idea of 5 foot wide. I just think that what Mark's saying is that application might be a heavier lift. Is that what you're saying, Mark? That the motorized is?
Yeah, the general permit are broken up to motorized vehicles, and it's just another level that you would have to go through.
Now, Mark, would that also apply to the boardwalks as opposed to the bridges that actually span something?
It's something we have to look into. Our office hasn't done any. We just started looking at this when I got the packet yesterday. So we just know that they do have general permits that are split up versus motorized and non-motorized. And it talks about boardwalks and trails is what they're the general permit. General permit 17, 17A, and 17B. And we just haven't had time to look into what all the requirements are.
See, if we could get access on both sides of the creek from the road, then we wouldn't need to span any of the bridges.
Okay, well, that's something we can look at. I'm going to have to postpone this portion of the meeting. I think as long as there's no objection, I think we move forward. At least we might want to break this down into committee. I think Mr. Ranieri probably wants to head up this committee, representing the council, working with the volunteer organizations. We'll get things started with our engineer and get that done so that we can at least get something moving. I think we can continue to move forward. I do think, and if Ms. Kelly's on this call, I think we really need to get our insurance in on this sooner than later, because I think what they'll do is at least give us a little bit of guidance of what the county has done throughout the rest of the park system. I mean, we all could walk through the rest of the park system, and there's bridges and paths going through all of the municipalities in the county. So let's look at what the best practices are for this. The borough already we have 3 bridges at Vanilla Park. So they were put in many, many years ago, and they've held up very well. And we've actually done, I think, a great job maintaining them in the pathway. So Ross, I appreciate it. I think it was important that we at least took this first step. I apologize with our short timing. I'm going to go a little bit longer because I have a little bit more time. Let's just, if there's no objection, I know Mr. Bayshore had some additional things that he wanted to go over. Dave, this was still not the public portion. I apologize. I want to get some of the reports done before I have to leave. Mr. Bayshore, do you want to at least report what you have so everyone at least hears what's going on in the town?
Sure. I submitted my report in writing. We had an engineering committee meeting last week, and we discussed a lot of things, especially with the ARP funding. So we have a proposal already submitted to replace 6 manholes on Evesham Road. So as soon as we're authorized on that, we can get the design going. We also talked about slip lining stormwater sewers on various roads, including Davis Road, First Avenue, and then there's a residential area in Rambler where the storm pipes go through properties, and we want to get those slip lined. We discussed upgrades at Pump Station A off of Forest Avenue. There's some issues going on with 3rd Avenue drainage, and there's an issue on a sanitary sewer line on Crescent Avenue. So we're looking at defining scope of works for all those, and then possibly using the ARP funding. We also talked about rehabilitating the police station roof. The vaulted roof is starting to show signs of wear. I think it was about 10 years ago we had put a coating on that, and we're pretty much at the end of the useful life of that coating, so we have to look at something with that as well. Those were the big things we talked about. And then our sewer extension project, Davis Road, the TWA application was submitted on November 5th. We're just waiting to hear back from the state on that, and we're working with our environmental consultant for that level 2 environmental report. There's some things that he needs to get from us for the submission for that date. And that's pretty much everything that's going on right now. unless anybody has any questions about it that I might have missed.
So can I just, do you want a resolution or just a verbal authorization to move forward on the design of those 6 manholes?
As long as I have everybody's blessing. I mean, I don't know if Shelley needs a resolution or not, but however.
Ally, do you want a resolution, or are you okay with verbal? Do you want to just make a notation, move forward, or we could do a resolution at the next meeting?
Let's do one on Tuesday, next week.
Joyce, if you could put the resolution, so is that the only one you need, Mark? It's just that?
That's the only proposal we've submitted. We're trying to get a better defined scope of work on all the other projects. So I think Steve Bach was talking to Harry on some of those issues. Once we get a better scope of work, we can submit proposals for everything else that we talked about.
Okay. So we'll get that resolution in for next meeting. Is there any other questions for Mr. Bayshore?
That's for Evesham Road?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sanitary manholes on Evesham.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bayshore. Mr. Wozunk, is he on this meeting? Just so, Harry, you want to follow up with Mark, just to make sure we're on the same page?
Sorry, I had to try to unmute. Pretty much copying everything that Mark talked about. You know, it's all proposals on all the projects. We'll start getting the prices together and the scope of it, and we'll start trying to figure in how we can fit it in the 22-23 budget with the ARP plus the regular capital. You know, plus we also got the paving projects we talked about this year. So we have a lot on the plates with engineering and public works.
Was there anything you wanted to add to this meeting before we move on?
No, progress on everything. We're prepping for this coming weekend. So, of course, you know, we'll be fully ready on it. I know it's a concern with everybody, but just watching the weather forecast and everything else, pay attention to it because all depends on which way it lands and comes at us. We could be looking at a significant amount of wet stuff this weekend being white. So be prepared.
I have one more thing to add then, Marilyn, if I may. At the engineering committee, we talked about the next round of open space possibly going to the VFW park for 3 to 5, I think 2 to 5 year olds. So I know Shelley said we could always go for a second round of funding for more bridges around the lake, but just a matter of what the borough's priorities are.
Yes, we did discuss that. The VFW, just so everybody remembers, it took us a very long time to acquire that piece of property. And I think Mr. Wozunk has pointed out to us, along with our insurance company, that equipment needs to be updated and more properly maintained. These are things we're going to have to discuss on the finance side. Harry, before you go, just a quick question on the brine. Have any of our municipalities taken advantage of our brine service?
Yes, Barrington, Mount Ephraim have been over to us. I got a call from Belmar. They're lined up. All 3 of them will be to us this week to fill up, and possibly Magnolia on Friday morning. So we are prepared for it. We have plenty of brine made, and we're ready to handle our stuff plus the other communities. I think today, Nick Ritz actually submitted bills to Chris to send out for the schools for the salt from the last storm, plus the brine that we received. So they're all going out, being billed to the proper municipalities.
Great. And one last question, I'm sorry.
No.
The gates at Barrington for the fuel station. Mr. Wozunk, is that all working well for both the police department and Public Works getting in and out of there with that remote gate?
We haven't got the remotes yet. They're still programming because there's so many of them. But we do have access with a keypad. So all the departments were notified about it. So far, I haven't heard anything different unless the chief had anything to report.
I went through it for the first time today. It worked great. We're appreciative of that. Thank you.
Great.
Here, one note, if I may, the quotes came in for the senior center library for the heating system. A couple of people saw that. Purchase order was submitted. We are getting a couple of parts. The heater is down in the senior center right now, but hopefully we can get the parts to get it back up ASAP. So it is being handled, and for everybody to know, we have switched vendors with our HVAC system. So we were having some issues, so now we've got another vendor, and hopefully everything will be back to normal as we had before.
All right, thank you, Harry.
Hey, Harry, real quick, we have space heaters in the senior center, right?
Yeah, we covered the kitchens and the bathrooms just to supplement. We are getting blowover from the gymnasium and the library, but we just put extras in there just with the colder weather, 20 degrees of block building. We just want to make sure it's
Yeah, tomorrow wind chill, 15 degrees, so.
Yeah, we're watching it, we're monitoring it, and Maria's been good about it also.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, let me just get the rest of our, Shelley, did you have anything else you wanted to add about the finance before I get, what I'm gonna do is do our professionals and then jump back to council if anybody has anything to say.
No, there isn't really anything for me other than just making sure everybody has all of their, Harry brought up with the brine, if there are agreements in place between the towns, making sure everybody has them back and the invoices are being submitted for services like that.
All right, great. All right then, Mr. Long, anything on the legal front?
Nothing for public consumption at this time, Mayor, and also at the Borough Hall, no one is here, so we're good to go. Thank you for, we've been primarily talking about the policy with the opt-outs that we talked tonight, and I would just urge that we are cautious about the proposal that we heard. Of course, we all agree it's a great idea in principle, but there are many, you're kind of walking through some legal minefields here, so we have to be very careful in how we go about it. So I think the approach that we're taking is the right one. So thank you for that, Mayor, and all of council.
All right, thank you, Dan. And just to let everybody know, because of the way we advertised, this is still difficult for us, having a Zoom meeting where we, have told the public we potentially might have an in-person meeting. I do want to say now that hopefully without any objection, I'd like us to have at least the February meeting in person, the caucus, only because I know Mr. Sampolsky has some action he wants us to take. So as long as there's no objection, we're still going to work with our IT company and our other proposals from our microphone companies to try to get it so that we have the ability to either be in person or live, so that some members could be remote, some residents can be remote, while some of us are there. So that's still a goal that we have to try to do that. And I think our funding, once again, our ARP funding and some of the funding that the federal government and the states are trying to give us is so that we do provide these kind of services so that we can do in person or remote. Chief, did you want to add something before we get to council?
No, I'm good, thank you. Whatever I have, I'll have at the council meeting. Thank you.
Mayor, can I hop in real quick?
All right.
Sorry, Joyce, I know I promised you earlier. What about for next week's council meeting?
Next week's council meeting. Does everyone, I don't believe we have anything that's really imperative on the agenda that we need to do in public. Is there any objection to do it as a Zoom meeting, or does someone feel we need to be in person next week?
Joyce, as long as we can advertise it in time.
Well,
As soon as I give it to her tomorrow morning, I can get it in.
Fantastic, so let's do that. Let's advertise it
For February.
yeah, because I don't believe there's any kind of pomp and circumstance. There's no swearing-ins. There's no big presentation. I want to remind everybody the planning board will be meeting in person only because of their function. Their function is more like a quasi-court, so they need to show evidence and testimony and things like that. And I think the public has a much more impact on those meetings. But our meetings are typically, we're just voting on resolutions and ordinances, things like that, paying the bills. I don't see anything that's of any great, that we need the public, they can't accept just a Zoom meeting. So is everybody okay? Patty, you okay with the Zoom? You think that would be fine? Okay. So let's we'll advertise for Zoom the next meeting, the council meeting, but the caucus will be live because of the things we have to do.
At the February caucus?
The end of February, that one will be live.
Oh.
We have the swearing in.
So what, the caucus in February will be live, and the March, what actually is going to happen? Are we going to have the March? It will be in person?
Eleanor, next week's meeting, 1 week from today, will be a Zoom meeting. We're going to advertise tomorrow, give more than enough time to let people know it'll be Zoom. But the caucus meeting on February 22nd will be a live meeting because I believe we'll be swearing in our new police employees coming out of the police academy. Is that acceptable, Honor?
The 22nd will be live, and then, of course, our council meeting in March will be live. Is that correct?
We'll continue. We'll just play a little bit by ear, but I'd like this. I think we can do things live. I think we're doing a pretty good job. It's been a little crazy these past few weeks, but hopefully things are getting better again.
Okay.
I'm going to go around. I do have, like I said, I gave myself an extra 15 minutes, but it's up to you guys if you want to have a longer meeting. I'm going to go around the room with the members of council if anybody has anything they want to report this evening, or wait till their caucus, the council meeting. Obviously, we'll have a public portion and pay the bills. Ms. Passio, did you want to add anything to this meeting?
No, progress.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Passio. Ms. Kelly, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Just about the core training for the cybersecurity, but I think what we're going to do is discuss that at the meeting next week, because it's very involved, and I want everybody to understand just exactly where we are with this.
Absolutely, I agree. So yeah, if you have that report for next meeting, I think that would be good for everyone. Let them know what we need to do, our obligation.
Yes. By that time, I'll have the rates for any additional work we need in regard to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Farrell, did you have anything more that you wanted to add?
No, I think Mark pretty well summed up our meeting. All the rest progress.
Yeah, Mark doesn't look too bloody from that last meeting. He looks pretty good. He made out of it. All right. Mr. Ranieri, did you want to add any more to the finance?
Yes, Nick, I'm going to keep it short. Everybody's moving forward, and I can save a lot of it until next week, but I'd just like to start with, I'd be happy to, represent council with the Hirsch Lake Park project. I would be looking forward to getting started. And slow is okay. Slow is okay. Better to be safe than sorry. We're doing a lot of stuff, year-end stuff. Right now, Bowman's checking all of our annual financial statement, our debt budget. A lot of stuff's happening. There's a lot going on. Cleaning up 21 and getting ready for 22. I'll give my final report next week. The rest is progress.
All right, thank you, John. Yeah, just one little caveat. Shelley's going to be holding one of your legs. Mark's going to hold the other leg, and then John's going to have both. Dan's going to have both the arms. So this way, we'll make sure we get through this with the finance, the legal, and the engineering.
Just want to keep everybody out of jumpsuits, Mayor.
Yeah, orange is the new black. I heard though, isn't that good? Okay, so who do we have? We have Mr. Lovenstein. Did you want to add anything else?
No, the rest is progress. Harry and I have been communicating about the storm coming this weekend. It looks like it's going to hit us pretty hard. Too bad you all don't live near with snow blow your driveways and sidewalks, but I can't get to you. Sorry about that. And best progress.
Thank you. And Mr. Shapiro, tell us a little bit about sports, because I keep hearing things. Want to make sure, how's everything going with the sports?
Everything, nothing stopped. Basketball's doing fine. Registration for started already, so they're looking to see how many teams they're going to have. They're working on sponsorship. Baseball should be starting up in a couple weeks with registering also. So, right now it's a little slow season, but starting to pick up, and everything is pretty good, especially with basketball. Basketball's doing pretty good.
Okay, very good.
Considering everything's going on. The rest is progress.
About a tournament over Mother's Day weekend for pickleball.
I will talk to you about that. What I have to do, when I answer it, I've got to find out from Joe's exactly the insurance that they need to have. Stuff like that. I'm not sure. Is it $1, something like that?
Well, we could talk how we could do it, because I'm going to talk to them and see if it's maybe it's a borough sponsored event, but we have every applicant sign. Every applicant signs a waiver. I think we've done that. I think before with the fine we've done and stuff like that with when I did it with the school district and stuff like that. So maybe there's a way we can partner. It is our facility. I think it's something we've talked about, but I'll reach out to Leslie and maybe the three of us get together and kind of iron this out, and obviously make sure it passes muster. But yeah, I did get that call too. Thanks, Rich. Okay. Before I get on to payment of bills, did I miss anybody? Is there anything else we want to discuss before I move to payment of bills and then the good and welfare? No? Okay. First thing we need is a motion to pay the monthly bills.
I'll make a motion to pay the monthly bills.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Passio, second by Mr. Lobenstein. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Mrs. Passio,
Yes.
Mr. Ranieri,
Yes.
Mr. Lobenstein,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
and Mr. Sapiro.
Yes.
Okay, the monthly bills will be paid. This portion of the meeting is open to the public. This is the good and welfare portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Thank you, Dave. State your name and address.
My name is David Steinberg. I live at Brunson House, apartment 313 Spitz Road. Last week, I sent an email to members of mayor and members of council having to do with the upcoming 100th anniversary of the founding of Runnemede.
4 years.
And I'd like to start a discussion on what needs to be done, how it's to be done. I've talked to other people from Reimagine Runnemede who would like to participate, but of course we could have everybody participate in that as well. So, again, I'm not sure exactly what the procedures are or how to move forward with that, but I think it's something that would really be great for Runnemede. There are things that can be done. I'm not prepared to talk about any of them at the moment, but only after we get some sort of will of the council to be able to move forward with that.
Okay. Dave, let me just, we have a public events committee. I think that committee will be in charge of the.
I love it. I love it.
And we might add, obviously, I think you're right, it's a much bigger event. So between that committee and then hopefully, like you say, a group of volunteers would be great to be part of that, along with council, because I think you touched on a good point that it should be a multi-year planning, because if there is some finances that we might need to put together to do things, other municipalities did time clocks and time capsules, parades, parties, just general improvements to the municipality, investing in things that celebrate the 100-year anniversary. I agree. I think what we could probably do is maybe towards the end of this year, set up a committee and then do like a 4-year plan so that we tied it. I want to point out, and I hope everybody realizes it, it's also the 250th anniversary of our nation. So we will be competing or complementing that. And I think that's maybe a better word to say, complementing our country's 250th anniversary. So they're only about 3 months apart, a little less than 3 months apart. So maybe we kind of, we'll have to put, when we get our heads together, start to put that all together. But the Public Events Committee, Public Events has a budget. We can start to plan that budgeting, even if it's a multi-year budgeting, to have that prepared, even some capital bonding for some maybe projects that coincide with the anniversary. Once again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Our neighbors some of them have already gone through their 100th. I do want to make it clear, though, that many of if you look at the history in that period in 26, a lot of towns were created in a small window. Belmar, us, Brooklawn, I think Mount Ephraim, there were 4 or 5 towns were all created in a week. So maybe there's even a little coordination with our neighbors and things like that. But I agree that it's a long-term planning is definitely the way to go. So thank you, David.
Okay, one more thing.
Yes.
I'd like to report I was out at the Labyrinth today. Ed White has put in so far 4 benches. They're not completed because we have the uprights in there. They're in concrete. They're very secure. We're not quite finished yet. We want to get the other 4, and then we want to be able to secure the horizontal pieces with the vertical uprights. And so in the meantime, we have caution tape around. We have there's red cones around as well because it's still a hazard to the public. And once we've completed it, we will remove them. So I invite you, when you get a chance, come out and take a look at, and see the two we already have up. We also have the donor wall up, although no names have been put on it. We're still waiting for Say It With Clay to complete the names. They'll probably be done, my guess, I don't have a definite date, my guess is probably next few weeks or so we'll have them. And once we get them, then we're going to put them up on the wall as well. So come on down, stop, take a look at it and admire it, because things are starting to happen, and it's visible things now. So I cordially invite you to stop one by.
Thank you, Dave. And don't forget to do final inspection. So that'll close this out, and that'll really, put the dot on the I there, so that this is the kind of way we want to do these projects, Dave. I appreciate that you did the engineering, the footings. I know it was a little difficult, but I think it's going to make, those benches are going to be there forever. I really have potential.
Absolutely.
Extremely long time, and really done well, even though there was some hurdles.
Well, there are always hurdles, and anything worthwhile doing, and overcoming whatever obstacles are there, and we've certainly done that and moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public?
Thanks, Dave.
Please state your name and address. Okay, hearing and seeing no one else, is there a motion to close the public portion?
I make a motion to close the public portion.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Passio, second by Mr. Ranieri. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public portion is closed. Thank you all. I ran a little late, but that's okay. Is there anything else before we close the meeting?
Nope, all good.
Saying nothing? Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Passio, second by Mr. Lovenstein. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
7:08, aye.
Aye.
We adjourned at 7:08. Thank you all. Good job.